Cougs house. In the wake of signing Connor Workman, the Houston Cougars have added a couple of really, really big transfer portal signees. No, trust me, I mean really, really big signees.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, a podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Appreciate you making your first listen each and every day. If you want to join the conversation, but you don't know what to say, tell us in the comments down below, wherever you found this podcast, if you're a pancakes or a waffles person, because I feel like the Houston Cougars, after this couple guys they're signed and a few guys they might sign and stuff like that, Houston might become a pancake kind of town. More on that in a second. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time, the best place to get last minute tickets, the lowest price, guaranteed. I'm excited about it. You should be too. Go check out Game Time. Use code Locked on College for $20 off. But we'll do more on that later. Houston is retaining a couple of big time names in the defense. Houston's got potentially a handful of really talented guys they could grab in the next couple of days, even this weekend. But before we get to all that, Houston, in the wake of signing Connor Wegman, is adding to the position group that probably needed the most help. Houston and Willie Fritz and Slade Nagel and Amanya Gavi add a couple of big time, literally and figuratively, offensive linemen on Thursday. By midday, frankly, they had been linked to both guys as having signed. I guess the graphics came out, one of them by the afternoon. It is no accident that both Jason Brooks Jr. from Oklahoma State and Matthew Wykoff, I guess at this point from Cal, both commit to Houston within 18 hours of Connor Wegman signing with the Cougs. I want to start with Jason Brooks Jr. From Dobie High School, class of 2020. Start off at Vanderbilt, transferred to Oak State. He got the retweet approval of Boogie Johnson, for what it's worth. And he commits to Houston as a grad transfer. He did not play last season. In early September, he posted on social media that he was going to withdraw from the team, save his eligibility, and enter transfer portal at the first window. Here we are in the first window, and here he is coming back. Again, he did transfer from Vanderbilt to Oklahoma State, so he did that whole transfer thing one time. But in 2023, when he was playing for Oklahoma State, he started the first 7 games of the season before ultimately having an injury. And you got to remember, 2023, Oklahoma State was really good. That team was a Big 12 title contender. That part of the fall off of their 2024 team is reflecting on how many guys they brought back from the 2023 team, and the kind of poisonous gas in the air or salt in the water or whatever. People are leaving that team left and right. So I would say him coming to Houston might say both more about what's going on in Oklahoma State and more about how many guys want to come home to play. And looking for film on him, it's hard because he didn't play in 2024. But you find videos and interviews and stuff of kids you're going through. And Jason Brooks has the words Houston in giant letters across his chest in a tattoo. I mean, he's very literally for the city in every possible way. Also, I found out in looking through videos like that, his nickname is Queso. So maybe we have to have some queso questions. What do you think of queso? Where do you get your best queso in Houston? Those kind of things. I've got to ask a lot of things. I think it has more to do with video games, but I'm old. So I think that's what I had to do with though. But anyway, he is 6'3", 315 pounds, and really plays bigger than that. He's joined in the Thursday signings by Matthew Wykoff of Cal. Matthew started off at A&M. Fun fact, actually, when he was transferring in the transfer portal from A&M, at the time we had John Garcia was our recruiting expert who did all things transfer portal, and I had him on for an episode, and we talked about how much I wanted him to join the team back then. Wykoff is originally from Magnolia, Texas. He comes to Houston again, A&M to Cal to Houston. At A&M, he was as a redshirt freshman, was all SEC freshman team as a center. He's played a lot more guard as well. The dude is a great run blocker, and he's 6'6", 330. So 6'6", 330, great run blocker. That's a big time deal for your guard position. Now, both Brooks and Wykoff have issues in the pass protection side of things. They're just worse at it than they are on the run blocking side of things. But on the interior, you typically have three guys to block two unless they're blitzing, and you're blitzing, you try and get the ball out anyway, right? So it's usually that's why your tackles get put on islands. That's why they're usually your highest paid guys in the NFL or whatever. Is the tackles have a lot more pass blocking responsibility. Not that the guards don't, but it's a growth area for both Wykoff and Brooks. And man, oh man, when you watch these guys, especially Matt Wykoff, when you watch these guys run block, they make up for it. If we're trying to do the Slade Nagel offense that happened in Tulane, where they had Michael Pratt throwing and Tajay Spears running behind a great offensive line, we got Rashawn Sanford, we got Connor Wegman, and now we got some guards that can do that whole running people over kind of stuff. I mean, this looks good. I think it's interesting that Wykoff is a much better run blocker too, and that he's 6'6". You typically think of run blocking as like a low man wins, getting underneath pads, requires a lot of flexibility. I think that speaks to his athleticism. Both kids played tackle in high school. I know high school is a long way away at this point, as they're both kind of towards the end of their college careers coming back home. But I would also point out that generally speaking, in high school, you're putting your most athletic big guys at tackle, and then you get to the Power 4 level like Oklahoma State, A&M, and Cal, and you suddenly realize, like, okay, well, they're all these kind of athletes, right? That's how I get shuffled up a little bit. I do think, though, and I mentioned at the top of the segment, that these two guys come to Houston because Connor Wegman is signed. And I don't know that they don't. I don't know that they do if he does not. Right? I don't know that they come to Houston if Wegman does not come to Houston. And for what it's worth, I think that's why they got on the Wegman signing at the start of this. Right? The portal officially opened Monday. There's a lot of guys visiting this weekend, but they signed Wegman officially, formally, publicly. I say publicly. The important part was publicly on Wednesday night. Behind closed doors, I think a lot of people knew that was coming. But you do that on Wednesday night to have Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, etc. like this. Now, I'd gotten kind of some tips on Wegman coming, so I was ready to do a live on the Wednesday night almost immediately after the fact. Actually, for what it's worth, I'd heard if it was not before this certain time on Wednesday night, it was going to be Thursday morning. And so then when it was after that, I had to kind of scramble because like, oh, I guess it's happening Thursday morning. And like, what's going about my way? Like, oh, no, it's not. We got to go record, right? So that's why that went a little bit haywire last night. But it was a lot of fun to talk to you guys live. The transfer portal is constantly moving, constantly shaking, and these guys are signing, committing at all kinds of random times. We're going to do our best to stay on top of it. And of course, we're going to reflect on guys like Jason Brooks and Matthew Wykoff that do commit to the University of Houston. However, as we're getting into our second segment, we're going to talk about guys that are potentially coming to Houston, potentially in the portal, etc. And some guys I'm really, really, really excited about. You got to understand that ultimately, as it goes here, by the time you're listening to this, by even the drive to work on Friday, these guys could already be gone, right? Like these things happen all kinds of crazy times. And I say that to say, if we get into the second segment, I have 4 or 5 guys I really want to keep an eye on in this transfer portal cycle to add to Jason Brooks, to add to Matthew Wykoff. I want to also take a second to tell you about Game Time, best place to get last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed, because whether it's this Houston Cougar football team they're building, a comedy show, the theater, other sports teams going on, if you're lucky enough to get to Vegas to watch the Rockets this weekend, whatever the case may be, you got to get your tickets at Game Time. That's cool, like AI tool now, where like they'll find the best deal and analyze the data to put the best deal for you. Called Game Time Picks, makes it easier to save more on sports tickets, comedy tickets, concert tickets, etc. I also appreciate the lowest price guarantee. If you can find tickets in the same section and row cheaper somewhere else, Game Time can credit you back 110% of that difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code Locked On College for $20 off of your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Cougs here, breaking down Houston Cougars in the portal. And frankly, looking at guys that could be potentially Houston Cougars that are in the portal, I should say, as we move into a segment looking at potential guys. And these are guys that either have visited or will visit or have been linked to visits. And I want to stress as we enter the weekend this weekend, you could very well see a dozen commitments by Sunday. You might see more than that. There are a lot of kids coming. It's easy to get to Houston, a couple big airports, very drivable from a large region of very rich football playing soil. Bluntly, it's finals week and those kinds of things for these college kids at campuses. So if they're online or if they're doing papers or if they're already done with their tests, they might be home. They might be willing to travel. They might have the time to do it. And frankly, if they're looking to transfer, their grade might be able to withstand being absent for a final anyway. That's neither here nor there. What is here and there is there are a lot of people on campus this weekend, and the week after, all touring campus looking to be in this transfer class Houston's creating, right? I want to start with the guy that's been linked to Houston the most that has not signed yet. And I say that because he could sign very, very quickly. He was on his second visit of the week, but his first visit was Houston. Yes, that is Cam Dewberry. Cam with a K, 6'4", 330 pounds. I got to watch a little bit more stuff on him online. And at 6'4", 330, he could kind of play tackle or guard or center. So I watched him kind of with that eye, like what could he play if he came to Houston? And he run blocks like a downhill guard. I mean, he can really get after in the running game, kind of like we talked about that two-lane connection, building that offense. That's a power four version of what we saw Nagel and them do, right? Definitely guarding the pass protection game. I don't know that one on an island out in space and all that kind of stuff. But Cam Dewberry, Texas A&M product, is the kind of guy that will make a like real run at. I mean, right now he would start on this team. He would have started over anybody on last year's team at guard. I wonder what it will look like this fall, depending on how many guys you bring in and who gets the starting spot or whatever. But would be an immediate upgrade at an interior offensive line spot right away. The other big guy, these guys are just getting bigger. Who down the list? So work with me here. Is Alvin Ebosele. Baylor transfers, got a visit scheduled with Houston. I believe it's this weekend, but it might be early next week. Don't quote me on that. He's 6'6", 315, and a similar kind of guy, right? He can play tackle or guard. He's much more pass blocking suited to playing guard. And you know, if we're being honest about it, had times where he got beat in pass pro at Baylor. Now, he can run block with the best of them, gets under pads, and gets that 6'6" frame really, really coiled up, which is frankly, we'll just to say simply impressive. But I have to say that he's the kind of guy that he's just a big, strong, and he plays really mean. I'm sure he's a nice kid. He plays really mean kind of athlete. And you play football, man. You can't keep those kids off the team. You got to find a few, right? And so I'm excited about Alvin Ebosele too. I don't know if Cam Dewberry, Alvin Ebosele both come or not. We'll see how those kind of things go. But I don't think that they work against each other. And frankly, I feel like even though you brought in a couple of interior offensive linemen, even though you're returning Pancake Hunter, who was probably your best offensive lineman a year ago, and that's another interior kind of guy. If you're going to build the Nagel type of offense that they ran and were successful with in his year as the OC at Tulane, and he had a big factor and was a big factor in calling plays the year before. But both of those years, they were very much a gap run scheme kind of team. And mind you, Gavi is familiar with it too. So you got to imagine it's kind of the thing that they're going to go with. These run grading type guys are really, really important. Now, the biggest of the big at 6'9", 310 pounds, is offensive tackle and transfer portal from Texas Tech, Dalton Merriman. Now, he is probably the rawest product out of all these guys. Probably needs the most work. Obviously, playing offensive tackle is the most challenging of the 5 spots, left tackle specifically of the 5 spots, because the quarterback's blindside, you can't really make mistakes. And for what it's worth, you're typically dealing with really impressive athletes at the opposing defensive end. But he's really, really got some natural movement to him that at 6'9", 310, I don't know that I would have just assumed he could do, right? I think you got to take a chance on the guy, bring him in, sign him, commit him, and kind of help develop. And he might have to play right away next year. We will see, but he's the kind of guy that I think, in a big picture perspective, you want on your rosters, you want to build him. I mean, again, a gigantic type of offensive tackle that you want to build into somebody that you can turn into a pro, right? I mean, he's got the kind of frame that screams, "Please work with me," right? And so, and he's shown that he's aggressive. He's shown that he can get after it. I have here that he started, what is that, 8 games at Texas Tech last year, and they weren't bad, right? They had some big time upsets there in Lubbock. I mean, productive offense the entire year. Dalton Merriman's an important factor in this. I looked at a couple other skinny guys as well that have been linked to Houston. Tanner Geisel is a 6'7" tight end, and if you were doing like Pro Football Focus grades or whatever as far as your ranking system goes, of these guys I'm listing, he'd probably be the highest. He's a really, really talented tight end. Again, 6'7", he's 240 pounds, and he had 18 touchdown passes, or he caught 18 touchdown passes at Ball State. He uses his frame really, really well. He's got a lot of frame to use. He uses his frame really, really well. He's a pretty solid blocker too, though, at 6'7", 240, and I wonder if he can get to 250 by the time he gets to Houston. I think he's a guy that, not unlike Michael Batten a year ago, not unlike AJ Haulcy the year before that, a kind of guy that would come in from a smaller program, and the nation might be like, whatever, whatever. And then he shows up and like, oh, this guy can go, right? He's got that kind of a vibe to his tape. Sticks out, not just he's a giant on a smaller football field, or like football field with smaller players. He's a giant, but he sticks out because he's really, really talented on that video. Receivers, Terrence Carter and Amari Thomas, both could come in and make an impact right away. Amari Thomas is a UAB guy, had almost 700 yards last year, 8 touchdowns. I think when I look at Amari Thomas, I think of like some wiggliness that you're going to use a lot between the 25s, and I don't know. I think that ultimately, I think that he's the kind of guy that would come in and probably do a lot of your slot kind of stuff. Now, Muse and Boogie Johnson are both returning. I'd heard that Amari Thomas was tied to Houston. I don't think that Boog and Mackay coming back means that you can't bring in Amari Thomas. I wonder if that will impact his decision, though. And the other guy I'm calling a wide receiver, other people are not, is tight end by the name of Terrence Carter, coming from Louisiana. He's the kind of guy at 6'2", 230. He is a true tight end. I don't mean to say that he's not a true tight end, but he is much more of a pass catching type. He had nearly 700 yards as a tight end last year, 4 touchdowns on the season. His name's been tied to Houston as well. I don't know that Houston gets both Keisel and Carter. And Carter feels more receiver-ish to me, so we might actually kind of get a view on what Slade Nagel wants to do with this offense based on which one he gets. I would imagine it's Keisel, but I also know that he's probably not the only coach in America that wants Keisel on the team. So we'll see how that goes. But again, This is all just guys being linked to Houston. There could legitimately be more than a dozen guys committed by Sunday afternoon, evening, because of how many guys they're bringing in for visits right now. The kids got some free time. You're not quite to bowl games, and it's early in the window. You want to nab them early before someone else can get them, etc. Shoot, that's part of me that anticipates one of these guys signing legitimately before this episode actually airs, but I can't do anything about that. I gotta just push. Gotta just push go. I also want to talk about a couple guys that are returning to the University of Houston, one of which I didn't think, actually, neither of which I thought would be. But before we get to that, I do got to remind you that today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, you get in on the NFL action with FanDuel. If you put down $5 and that bet hits, you get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets in the NFL all in one place. If you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check the latest stats, you live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page that you placed your bets. Visit FanDuel.com. You start with $150 back in bonus bets if your first bet hit. The first $5 bet hits. Visit FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Parker Ainsworth locked on Cougs. You're talking about portal additions and portal ads and portal this and portal that, but also about guys returning to the Houston Cougars. Now, I fully expected to lose both AJ Haulcy and Jeremiah Wilson this offseason. Jeremiah Wilson, I saw either transferring or going pro to either a bigger NIL kind of program or potentially going pro. He had a really good year for Houston at corner this year, their highest ranked player in Pro Football Focus in multiple games, right? And then AJ Haulcy, I don't know what position he is in 2024 football. I maintain that dude is an NFL player, and he's eligible for the draft if he wanted to go. I think the truth is that he's like a 2004 or 1998 strong safety in the modern game where you're not allowed to take people's heads off across the middle because Halsey will hit you, man. If you're now that you're not really allowed to do that as much, it's much rare that we see those kinds of hits happen. Teams don't have a need for that kind of safety. You've got to be able to cover a little bit differently. And so I wonder if Halsey is staying at Houston to go from like a 6th, 7th round pick or an undrafted guy and turn his, tape into that of a more of a 2nd, 3rd, 4th round guy with another year at Houston. AJ Haulcy was first team all Big 12, big time contributor. Obviously, Jeremiah Wilson, again, Pro Football Focus had him as the highest rated player on the team in multiple games. These two guys combined to have most of your interceptions last season as well. And I fully expected, and I've been telling people that ask me, I think a lot of Houston will enter the transfer portal at different points in this window. And again, a handful of them will enter at different points in the spring window. That's nature of the beast this year. And Houston's rebuilding, right? That's part of it is guys are coming and going, trying to get the right guys on the roster. And that means constant movement. Now, I saw both Halsey and Wilson going on to, I guess Wilson I thought would be at another school with a big NIL program, kind of like I say Hamilton did last year. AJ Haulcy I really thought was going to have a shot to go pro. And I guess, like I said, I think his draft grade was that like a 6th, 7th round pick. And so I think he's coming back to work and put that up a little higher and get more into the, first or 2nd, 3rd, 4th, whatever the case may be. Both of these guys, though, choose to announce they're returning to Houston on Thursday night. And I want to stress that, A, we're re-recruiting our guys all the time because you're seeing the recommitment to the University of Houston happening all the time, which is both cool and really, really scary. But it's good. I'm glad they did it. But B, these two guys, right? They recommit Thursday night, less than 24 hours after Connor Wegman commits to the University of Houston. Now, I don't mean to put all of it on Wegman's shoulders, and I don't mean to say that he has to be God's gift to earth as a quarterback. I don't mean to say anything in those stretches. He gets to find himself in this offense, and there are going to be speed bumps along the way. But what I am going to say is what the staff has done for this Houston Cougar football team and the defensive guys included, is they have shown they honestly looked at the team last year. They honestly looked at where the holes were. They appropriately attacked those weaknesses and they're efficiently fixing them, right? That is all good news. And it's the kind of thing that wins over trust with these kids. You hold the kids to a high standard on your football team. It makes sense that they're going to hold you to it back and say, listen, I came in, I ran all those hills, I did all those coverage drills, I did all those tackling drills, I did all those ball drills, I did all those kind of things, right? I did all that work to be on a 4-8 team as a defensive back, as both Haulcy and Wilson did. I need some proof that you're doing the work to make this a better team. And signing guys like Connor Wickman, signing offensive linemen like Brooks and Wykoff, those are steps in that direction, right? Even if the thing flops, even if it doesn't work out, even whatever, there's an argument that this whole thing is still successful because clearly it's the part that's resonating. It's the part that's bringing Power 4 guys from the city of Houston back. It's the thing that's bringing former 5-star recruits back to the city of Houston. All those cool hypothetical things we talk about, where this program could get to very quickly, the things this program has working in its favor are being utilized. And you're seeing it pay off in keeping guys like Jeremiah Wilson, keeping guys like AJ Haulcy, keeping guys like Latrell McCutcheon, keeping guys like Pancake Hunter, Boogie Johnson, Rashawn Sanford, right? I understand that talent is left, and I'm telling you again for free that more talent will leave. But to have a 4-8 football team last year with a coach that did not recruit a lot of the players on it, to have the guys, the talented guys coming back when your NIL program is where it is, it's growing, but it is where it is. You don't even have a defensive coordinator like and Haulcy and Wilson, for all intents and purposes, don't technically know who they're playing for yet. I'm wondering if their commitments mean that they have an idea. I also know that as a defensive coach, Fritz has a lot of connections, and there's thoughts of like, okay, well, just look down his coaching tree and who's got a job out there. If he's got an old defensive coordinator right now that's an analyst somewhere, like, is it going to be that guy, right? Is the guy going to get a promotion, go from analyst at an SEC school to a defensive coordinator at Houston? Maybe. Does he have some kind of an inkling? Tell his DBs that are in the portal, or whatever, like Jeremiah Wilson jumped out of the portal. Can you tell them, hey, trust me on this one. It's one of these three guys. We're going to be okay. Like, did that play into that somehow at all? If there is any movement in commitments, defensive coordinators, any basketball commitments, any of it over the weekend, we'll be breaking it down at Locked on Cougs on Monday morning, if not before. So hit subscribe, hit the bell so you know we're live. Locked on Cougs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.